Urban legends thrive across cultures, often intended to keep us wary of isolated parking spots at night or steer us clear of eerie children with unsettling, dark eyes. But what happens when such a tale spirals out of control, spreading panic so intense that it leads to real-life casualties? This is precisely what transpired in India in 2001, when over 350 chilling incidents were reported involving an entity that would soon be infamous as the Monkey Man of Delhi. Delhi, the vibrant and chaotic capital of India, is a vast metropolis teeming with nearly 33 million souls. It's not only immense in size, but also ranks among the most densely populated cities globally, packing about 29,000 residents into every square mile. From towering skyscrapers to sprawling slums, this bustling hub pulses with energy and life. Yet, despite its role as a major economic center, Delhi's residents faced numerous hardships in the early 2000s. Amidst a then population of 14 million, many struggled with unemployment, underemployment, and a crumbling infrastructure that lagged behind the city's demands. The rapid spread of slums meant millions lived without basic necessities like clean water, proper sanitation, or access to education. These grim conditions were compounded by horrendous air quality, with the city often cloaked in a toxic haze from vehicle exhaust, industrial pollutants, and burning refuse. And to add further to their woes, regular power outages plunged the poorest neighborhoods into darkness for hours on end. It was in this turbulent environment that one of the strangest creatures ever recorded made its eerie debut. Descriptions of this creature, which quickly became the subject of nightmarish fascination, ranged wildly. Some claimed it stood between 4 and 8 feet tall, its face resembling that of an ape, shrouded in dense black or brown fur, with eerie red eyes that glowed ominously in the dark. Those unfortunate enough to encounter it described a violent figure, prowling at night, pouncing on unsuspecting individuals, striking them with weapons, or tearing into them with vicious teeth and claws. While some accounts claimed that direct assaults had resulted in fatalities, many others reported a surge of fear so overwhelming that people leaped from rooftops and terraces in sheer desperation to escape. It wasn't long before the entire city became gripped by fear of this so-called Monkey Man of Delhi. As the terror spread, people clamored to understand what this creature could be. For many of Delhi's devout residents, whispers began to circulate about ancient Indian folklore. India's rich tapestry of legends is populated by creatures that haunt graveyards, caves, and shadowy places. Beasts like the demonic Rakshasas or the vampire-like Vitulas, all lurking within its supernatural lore. And then there are the cryptids, like the Mund Burung, a towering, 9-foot-tall Bigfoot-like creature said to inhabit dense forests, or its relative rumored to roam the Himalayas. Could the elusive Yeti, or a similar creature, have ventured into the heart of an urban sprawl to torment the city's most vulnerable? Whatever the explanation, the events that followed have been described as either undeniable proof of a supernatural assault or one of the strangest and deadliest episodes of mass hysteria ever recorded. The Monkey Man's appearance coincided with a searing heat wave that swept through Delhi in the summer of 2001. Temperatures relentlessly soared above 40 degrees Celsius, and the city's failing electricity grid left countless residents unable to even power a fan, compounding the misery. Rich and poor alike were at the mercy of the oppressive heat, leading many to sleep on terraces, balconies, and rooftops. Though this offered some relief from the sweltering interiors, it also exposed them to the thick, polluted air, and perhaps to something far more sinister. On one particularly oppressive night, Praz Chand, a 37-year-old factory worker, chose to sleep on his small terrace, hoping for a breeze, while his family remained inside their cramped, suffocating apartment. Space was scarce, and the intense heat made it unbearable to share the small, dilapidated flat. Praz laid a thin rug on the terrace, letting the hum of the city lull him to sleep around 1 a.m., but the quiet wouldn't last. At roughly 4 a.m., he was abruptly jarred awake. Though the darkness was impenetrable, he could sense a presence beside him. Without warning, something struck his arm, and then a heavy weight crashed on top of him. Disoriented, Prose could only make out the growls and snarls as the creature lashed at his face, neck, and head in a frenzy. The onslaught ended as quickly as it began, and whatever had attacked him melted into the shadows. Shaken and fearing for his family, Prose called the authorities, describing his assailant as strong, muscular, and unmistakably non-human. Only then did he learn he wasn't alone. Over the past week, some 20 residents from nearby slums had reported similar attacks. Victims, many ambushed while alone or sleeping on rooftops, bore deep gouges and scratches across their faces, arms, and necks. Strangely, all shared a similar account. After the violent assault, the creature seemed to vanish into thin air. As days turned into weeks, reports of encounters with this strange entity only grew. The authorities, faced with an increasingly fearful public, had no choice but to treat the menace as a legitimate threat. They enlisted over 3,000 additional officers to patrol the streets by night, combing through alleys and rooftops for anything out of the ordinary. Sketches drawn from eyewitness descriptions circulated, but rather than clarify, they muddied the waters, each version adding a layer of confusion. And as the number of attacks mounted, the already bizarre image of the monkey man twisted into something even stranger, sending Delhi into a spiral of fear and fascination. At times, he appeared in strange attire, sometimes even sporting a metal helmet. Some witnesses insisted the creature had a glowing halo, reminiscent of an angel, while others claimed it could leap over 30 feet in a single bound. Yet other accounts diverged further, describing not fur but feathers, and explaining the monkey man's uncanny ability to vanish as a result of flight. And, in perhaps the strangest twist, at least one person reported seeing him on roller skates. These varied descriptions made it hard for many to take the sighting seriously, but for those living in the slums, the terror of the monkey man felt all too real. Countless sightings were accompanied by physical injuries, scratches, bruises, and people knocked to the ground or struck. Some, terrified out of their minds, injured themselves in a frenzy to escape. At least one man tragically died, falling from a building after his neighbor cried out, warning of the monkey man's approach. The local media only fueled the panic, interviewing anyone with so much as a scratch or a spine-chilling story to share. Despite the bolstered police presence, young people across Delhi armed themselves with axes and sticks, patrolling the streets, hoping to protect themselves from the creature. This, however, only led to more chaos, as mistaken identity fueled mob violence, with armed groups attacking innocent people and stampedes breaking out in the slums as the monkey man hysteria spread. Yet, with temperatures soaring and electricity failing, tens of thousands had no choice but to continue sleeping on balconies every night. Consequently, attacks happened almost daily, sometimes with as many as a dozen in a single night. Police records tell of a young girl who, sleeping outside, woke to find a hairy, monstrous hand resting on her thigh. Her terrified screams brought her mother rushing out of their apartment, wielding a broom and frantically swinging at whatever might be lurking near her daughter. Stories like these soon gave rise to new rumors that the monkey man was preying on young women, intending to kidnap them and drag them to its hidden lair. By this point, fear had reached a fever pitch. Every evening, people went to bed gripped by dread, and each morning fresh reports of encounters, injuries, and deaths filled the airwaves. The most haunting story of all centered on a young woman known as Suman. She was 27, pregnant, and living in the slums of East Delhi. Suman had been struggling with the stifling heat, which made sleep nearly impossible. Hoping for some relief, she chose to sleep on the terrace one sweltering night when temperatures peaked at 42 degrees Celsius. Her neighbors had also gathered outside, hoping that there was safety in numbers. But in the early hours, Suman was startled awake by panicked shouts. Her neighbors were screaming that the monkey man had arrived. With nowhere to hide, she tried to flee down the stairs, but in her haste, she tripped and fell, suffering grave injuries. Tragically, she later succumbed to them in the hospital. The only other confirmed fatality remains a mystery to this day. Police records describe an unidentified man found with severe injuries to his face, neck, and abdomen, injuries that ultimately claimed his life. Though heartbreaking, his body became critical evidence in unraveling the Monkey Man mystery. Then Police Commissioner Suresh Roy turned to medical experts for insights into the man's wounds, many of which were confirmed to be bite marks of some kind. Doctors couldn't conclusively identify the bite marks. They didn't match any known animal. When police checked with officials at Delhi Zoo, all animals were accounted for. This left an unsettling question. Whatever had killed the man, was it something that prowled the city itself, or perhaps roamed the surrounding wilderness? And since the victim's body hadn't been mauled or devoured, it was clear that survival wasn't the creature's motivation for attacking. In just 3 weeks, there were nearly 350 reported encounters with the so-called Monkey Man of Delhi. Despite the flood of incidents, no one managed to capture a photo or even catch a glimpse clear enough to provide proof. The wildly differing descriptions only added mystery, sparking debates about whether this entity even existed at all. One theory is that a genuine attacker lurked in the dark alleys of Delhi's slums. Whether it was a mutated human, a monstrous ape, a demonic being, or something beyond classification mattered less than proving its physical presence. Many of the injuries pointed to something real, marked by lacerations that closely resembled bites. Some claimed that in the thick darkness, witnesses simply mistook an ordinary monkey or animal for something much larger and more sinister. However, others argued that no one could confuse India's local monkeys, which typically stand no more than 2 feet tall, with a creature supposedly reaching 5 to 8 feet. To many Delhi residents, the Monkey Man had to be supernatural. Only something otherworldly could explain how it struck so suddenly, then vanished without a trace. Some even believed it to be a shape-shifting demon, capable of slipping between dimensions like the North American skinwalker. Meanwhile, other theories suggested that the Monkey Man was human or a group of people in disguise. If so, were they pranksters, or did they have darker motives? This would explain why the creature often appeared clothed and was described at times with unusual accessories. Scientists and researchers worldwide, however, have a different perspective. They see the Monkey Man as a textbook case of mass hysteria, fueled by extreme heat, widespread power outages, and media sensationalism. As stories of attacks spread, fear and anxiety spread faster, especially among the poorest residents, who were left vulnerable by their living conditions. Collective dread, they argue, led people to interpret any movement, shadow, or noise as evidence of the creature's presence. Examining the reports closely reveals that many injuries stemmed from people trying to flee something they never actually saw. Suman, the pregnant woman, only heard her neighbor's terrified screams before her fatal fall. Pros Chand, who was attacked on his balcony, never got a clear look at what struck him. Only the unidentified man who died from his injuries provided physical evidence of an encounter, yet he never had the chance to tell anyone what attacked him. In India, animal attacks are common, with bears, leopards, and even tigers responsible for dozens of deaths annually. Perhaps he was just another tragic victim of a separate incident, later swept into the storm of Monkey Man panic. Then, there was the reward. As reports of the creature surged, Delhi police announced a 50,000 rupee reward for information leading to the Monkey Man's capture. Predictably, this triggered a flood of calls, many of which turned out to be hoaxes as people hoped to claim the money. Police observed a pattern. 94% of the reported victims lived in Delhi's poorest neighborhoods, and around 89% came from low-income backgrounds. After the frenzy subsided, it emerged that some individuals had fabricated injuries for attention, while others reframed existing wounds to fit the narrative of a Monkey Man attack. These revelations, however, received only a fraction of the attention that the Monkey Man sightings had, leaving many residents steadfast in their belief that the encounters were real. To this day, for many, It's hard to accept that the people of Delhi could react with such intensity without a true physical threat lurking in the shadows. After all, mass hysteria doesn't arise in a vacuum. What was really happening during those mysterious nights remains an enigma. For a few surreal months in 2001, the truth remained elusive, slipping just out of reach. What we do know is that Delhi, especially the slum areas where most encounters were reported, was facing grim conditions at the time. Poverty, malnutrition, and health problems tied to oppressive heat and thick pollution were the norm for many of its inhabitants. Could this atmosphere of hardship and vulnerability have given birth to the Monkey Man legend, or was something, or someone, using the chaos of the slums as a perfect backdrop for sinister actions? Without a reappearance, we may never have definitive answers. For now, the mystery endures, with competing theories but no concrete conclusions. Whether this was all a case of mass panic, misguided pranks, mistaken animals, or a mix of all these elements, the episode stands as a powerful example of how fear and rumor can quickly grow into an urban legend. With Delhi's population now soaring past 33 million, it seems almost impossible for such a creature, if real, to remain undetected forever. If the Monkey Man still roams the streets, it may only be a matter of time before he's spotted again. Unless, of course, he really was something beyond the realm of the natural, a specter destined to fade into myth. Bookmark.